The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead at Precision Point shooting range as Sarah Chen walked through the employee entrance for what she didn't yet know would be her last day as head instructor. Her small frame and unassuming demeanor had never seemed to matter much during her 3 years of employment here. Not when her students consistently posted the highest improvement scores in the facility's history. But that was before Marcus Donovan bought the place 6 months ago. And everything began to change in ways that made her stomach churn with each passing week. Sarah had built her reputation the hard way, earning respect from even the most skeptical members through patient instruction and remarkable results. Her ability to help struggling shooters find their accuracy was almost legendary among the regular clientele. What none of them knew was that Sarah's success came from an extraordinary gift she'd possessed since childhood: exceptional night vision that allowed her to see details in low-light conditions that would leave others completely flash blind. This genetic anomaly, affecting less than 1% of the population, had shaped her entire approach to marksmanship and teaching. Though she'd learned early to keep this advantage to herself, the morning started like any other, with Sarah reviewing the day's schedule of private lessons and group classes. She was particularly looking forward to working with Elena Rodriguez, a young police officer who'd been struggling with low-light shooting scenarios. Sarah had developed specialized techniques for exactly these situations, though she could never fully explain to her students why certain methods worked so well. Her techniques were based on maximizing whatever limited night vision a person possessed, combined with tactical breathing and micro-adjustments that she'd perfected through years of practice in conditions that would challenge even military specialists. Marcus Donovan's voice echoed across the range as he conducted what had become his daily ritual of impressing potential investors with his grand vision for Precision Point's future. A former pharmaceutical executive with no shooting experience but plenty of political connections, Donovan had purchased the range as part of a larger plan to develop the surrounding property into luxury condominiums. His strategy was simple: run down the shooting range's reputation, force out long-term staff, and create justification for selling the land to his development partners at an enormous profit. Sarah represented everything he wanted to eliminate: competence, loyalty from customers, and inconvenient standards of professionalism. The current staffing situation is temporary, Donovan was explaining to a group of men in expensive suits. We're transitioning to a more streamlined operation with instructors who understand modern business principles. His eyes found Sarah across the range, and she felt the familiar chill that accompanied his presence. In 6 months, he'd already fired 2 veteran employees on fabricated performance issues and had been systematically undermining Sarah's authority by questioning her methods in front of students and suggesting that her techniques were outdated and overly complex. The first sign of trouble came during her morning advanced class, when Donovan appeared with a man she didn't recognize, tall, muscular, with the swagger of someone accustomed to intimidating others. "Sarah, I'd like you to meet Brett Sullivan," Donovan announced with false enthusiasm. "Brett's going to be observing your class today and providing some feedback on your instruction methods." Sullivan's handshake was deliberately firm, his eyes conducting an assessment that felt more like an interrogation than a professional introduction. Throughout the class, Sullivan took notes on a tablet while making comments designed to undermine Sarah's authority. When she demonstrated proper stance for low-light shooting, he interrupted to suggest more aggressive positioning. When she explained breathing techniques for accuracy, he questioned whether such delicate methods were appropriate for serious shooters. Her students, most of them experienced marksmen who had specifically requested Sarah as their instructor, began to look uncomfortable as Sullivan's critiques became increasingly condescending. The breaking point came when Sarah was working with Elena Rodriguez on a specialized night shooting exercise. The range's lighting system could be dimmed to simulate various low-light conditions, and Sarah had developed a progressive training method that gradually reduced illumination while helping students adapt their technique It was during this exercise that Sarah's extraordinary night vision truly shone, allowing her to provide guidance that seemed almost supernatural to those who didn't understand her unique capability. Officer Rodriguez, adjust your sight picture slightly to the left, Sarah instructed as the lights dimmed to near darkness. You're compensating too much for the reduced visibility. Trust your muscle memory and let your eyes adapt naturally. Elena followed the guidance and promptly hit the center of the target. Her first successful shot in conditions that had previously frustrated her for weeks. Sullivan stepped forward aggressively. That's enough of this nonsense, it declared, switching the lights back to full brightness. Real tactical situations don't give you time for eye adaptation and breathing exercises. What Officer Rodriguez needs is practical combat instruction, not this touchy-feely meditation garbage. He turned to Elena with a patronizing smile. I've trained with Navy SEALs and Special Forces units. Let me show you how professionals handle low-light scenarios. What followed was a demonstration of everything wrong with Sullivan's approach to instruction. He advocated for rapid-fire techniques that prioritized speed over accuracy, dismissed the importance of sight alignment in dark conditions, and generally promoted methods that would be dangerous for anyone without extensive combat experience. When Elena attempted to follow his guidance, her accuracy deteriorated immediately, leading to frustration and self-doubt that Sarah recognized as potentially damaging to a developing shooter's confidence. Excuse me. Sarah interjected politely but firmly. Officer Rodriguez has been making excellent progress with gradual skill building. Perhaps we could continue with the established training plan? Her intervention was professionally delivered, but Sullivan's reaction was swift and disproportionate. Who do you think you are to question my methods? He demanded. Stepping into Sarah's personal space in an obvious intimidation tactic. I've got more combat experience than you'll ever have. Lady, maybe it's time someone with real credentials took over this class. The threat was clear, and Sarah could see Elena and the other students exchanging uncomfortable glances as the situation escalated beyond professional disagreement into something much more personal and ugly. Donovan materialized as if summoned by the conflict, his timing too perfect to be coincidental. What seems to be the problem here? He asked with feigned concern, though his satisfaction was barely concealed. This had clearly been orchestrated. Sullivan was likely a plant, brought in specifically to create justification for Sarah's removal. The realization hit her with crystalline clarity as she observed the choreographed nature of their responses. I'm afraid we have a situation where established protocols aren't being followed, Sullivan reported with military precision. The current instruction methods are inadequate for serious tactical training, and there's resistance to implementing proper techniques. He handed Donovan his tablet, which presumably contained predetermined criticisms designed to support whatever decision had already been made regarding Sarah's employment. Donovan studied the tablet with theatrical seriousness before delivering his verdict. Sarah, I'm afraid we need to make some immediate changes to ensure our students receive the highest quality instruction, effective immediately. You'll be transferred to basic firearms safety classes, and Brett will be taking over all advanced and tactical training. The demotion was delivered with corporate smoothness, but the message was unmistakable. This was step one in a process designed to push her out entirely. The humiliation was intended to be public and complete. Advanced instruction was not only Sarah's specialty but also the highest paying and most prestigious position at the range. Basic safety classes were typically assigned to new employees or those being disciplined, and everyone present understood exactly what this reassignment meant. Elena Rodriguez looked stricken. Several other students appeared ready to voice objections, but Sarah maintained her composure with the discipline that had served her throughout her career. I understand, Sarah replied evenly, though inside she felt the familiar fire that had driven her to excel despite every obstacle life had placed in her path. I'll transition my current students to Mr. Sullivan and begin with basic safety instruction tomorrow. Her professionalism in the face of such obvious injustice seemed to surprise both Donovan and Sullivan, who had clearly expected anger, argument, or tears that would further justify their actions. As her students reluctantly gathered their equipment and prepared to leave, Elena approached Sarah with obvious distress. "This isn't right," she whispered urgently. "Your methods work. I've improved more in 3 weeks with you than in 6 months of previous training. Is there anything we can do?" Sarah appreciated the support but knew that Elena's career couldn't afford involvement in workplace politics at a civilian facility. "Focus on your training." "Officer Rodriguez," Sarah advised quietly, "remember what we've practiced about adapting to changing conditions. Sometimes the environment shifts in ways we don't expect, but the fundamentals remain the same." It was advice that Sarah realized she needed to follow herself, though she wasn't yet sure what form that adaptation would take. That evening, Sarah sat in her modest apartment, reviewing the events of the day and considering her options. She could file a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, but Donovan was wealthy enough to have excellent lawyers and sufficient political connections to make such a process lengthy and expensive. She could look for employment at other shooting ranges, but Donovan's influence in the local firearms community meant that negative references would likely follow her wherever she went. As she considered her situation, Sarah's phone rang with a call from Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a researcher at the National Institute of Health who had been studying Sarah's unique visual capabilities for the past 2 years. Their relationship had begun when Sarah sought medical consultation about her night vision, leading to participation in a research study about genetic variations in human eyesight. Dr. Martinez had become not just a medical consultant, but a trusted friend who understood both the advantages and challenges of Sarah's condition. "I heard about what happened at the range," Dr. Martinez said without preamble. "Elena Rodriguez contacted me. Apparently you'd mentioned our research during one of your low-light training sessions. She's concerned about you and thought I should know about this situation." The fact that Elena had reached out demonstrated both her loyalty and her understanding that Sarah's abilities were something unusual and valuable. "Dr. Martinez continued, "I've been waiting for the right opportunity to discuss something with you. Sarah, our research has attracted attention from several organizations interested in practical applications for enhanced night vision capabilities. There's a situation developing that might be perfect for your skills. Though it would require some risk on your part, the cryptic nature of this offer intrigued Sarah, particularly given her current circumstances. "What kind of situation?" Sarah asked. Though part of her suspected, she already knew the answer. Dr. Martinez had mentioned previously that certain law enforcement and security organizations were interested in the research, particularly for specialized applications where enhanced night vision could provide tactical advantages. There's been suspicious activity at several shooting ranges in the state, including yours. Dr. Martinez explained carefully. Federal investigators believe that some ranges are being used for money laundering and illegal weapons transactions, with the legitimate training operations serving as cover for criminal enterprises. They need someone with specialized observational capabilities who can operate in low-light conditions to gather evidence without detection. The pieces began falling into place in Sarah's mind. Donovan's purchase of the range, his systematic elimination of experienced staff, the introduction of questionable characters like Sullivan, and his obvious disinterest in actually running a successful shooting facility all suggested activities beyond simple business operations. Her demotion might have inadvertently positioned her perfectly to observe aspects of the operation that she wouldn't have noticed as head instructor. "What would this involve exactly?" Sarah asked. Though she was already beginning to formulate plans, her unique capabilities would indeed be valuable for surveillance in low-light conditions, and her position at the range provided perfect cover for extended observation. More importantly, The opportunity to expose corruption and potentially criminal activity appealed to her sense of justice in ways that simple employment elsewhere could not. Dr. Martinez outlined the basics. Sarah would maintain her employment at the range while documenting suspicious activities, with particular focus on after-hours operations when legitimate training would not be occurring. Federal agents would provide technical support and legal protection, but Sarah's unique visual capabilities made her irreplaceable for gathering evidence that conventional surveillance methods might miss. The following week, Sarah began her new assignment teaching basic firearms safety to beginners, while simultaneously conducting careful observation of the range's operations. Her Demoted, ironically, provided better access to areas of the facility she'd rarely visited as head instructor, and her reduced status made her effectively invisible to Donovan and Sullivan during their private conversations and meetings. Working basic safety classes also introduced Sarah to a different category of range users, new shooters, often women and older adults, who were frequently intimidated by the aggressive atmosphere that Sullivan had begun promoting in advanced classes. Sarah discovered that many of these students had specifically requested her instruction after hearing about her patient teaching methods from other customers, suggesting that Donovan's strategy of undermining her reputation had largely backfired among the range's actual user base. It was during evening hours, after normal operations had ended, that Sarah's enhanced night vision began revealing the true nature of Donovan's business model from her vantage point in the employee break room, which offered views of both the parking area and the main range floor. She could observe activities that would be invisible to anyone with normal eyesight. Men arrived at irregular intervals driving expensive vehicles, meeting briefly with Donovan in his office, before proceeding to the range floor for activities that clearly had nothing to do with firearms training. The breakthrough came during her third week of surveillance, when Sarah observed a late-night meeting between Donovan, Sullivan, and several men she recognized as local political figures. Using her enhanced night vision, she could see details that conventional surveillance cameras would miss entirely: documents being exchanged, weapons being transferred, and cash payments being made in conditions of near-total darkness. Her ability to observe these activities without detection was proving invaluable to the federal investigation. However, Sarah's careful surveillance was about to be complicated by an unexpected development. Elena Rodriguez had continued visiting the range despite Sullivan's inadequate instruction, and her questions about Sarah's teaching methods had begun attracting attention from other dissatisfied customers. A group of advanced students had started requesting private lessons with Sarah outside of normal range hours, creating opportunities for her to continue her specialized instruction while maintaining her surveillance activities. The situation reached a critical point when Sullivan became suspicious of Sarah's after-hours presence at the range during what should have been a routine evening of surveillance. Sarah found herself trapped in the employee break room as Sullivan conducted an unscheduled security check of the facility. Her enhanced night vision allowed her to observe his systematic search of areas where someone might be hiding while remaining undetected in shadows that would conceal her from normal eyesight. As Sullivan's search brought him closer to her location, Sarah realized that discovery would not only end her surveillance operation, but potentially place her in physical danger. Sullivan's association with Donovan's criminal activities suggested that he would not hesitate to use violence against anyone who threatened their operation. Her only advantage was her ability to move silently through the darkened facility, using visual capabilities that Sullivan could not match. The chase that followed tested every aspect of Sarah's unique abilities. Moving through the range in near-total darkness, she was able to navigate obstacles and plan routes that would be impossible for someone with normal vision. Sullivan's increasingly frustrated search efforts revealed both his lack of familiarity with the facility's layout and his dependence on artificial lighting that Sarah did not require. During this extended game of cat and mouse, Sarah was able to position herself to observe a meeting between Donovan and a group of men who were clearly involved in illegal weapons trafficking. Using her enhanced night vision, she documented serial numbers, license plates, and faces with precision that would be impossible under normal surveillance conditions. However, her mission was complicated by the realization that Elena Rodriguez had arrived for a previously scheduled private lesson, potentially placing the young police officer in danger. The climactic confrontation occurred when Sullivan discovered Elena's presence and immediately suspected that Sarah was using the police officer to gather information about their operations. His confrontation with Elena quickly escalated to threats of violence, forcing Sarah to abandon her concealed position to protect someone who had become both a student and a friend. What followed was a demonstration of Sarah's capabilities that none of the criminals had anticipated. In conditions of near total darkness, she was able to disarm Sullivan, subdue 2 other men, and coordinate Elena's tactical response with precision that seemed supernatural to those who couldn't understand her enhanced visual abilities. The criminals found themselves completely outmatched by someone they had dismissed as an insignificant employee. Federal agents arrived as Sarah and Elena maintained control of the situation, apprehending Donovan and his associates with evidence that Sarah's surveillance had made possible. The illegal weapons, financial records, and documented criminal activities provided sufficient grounds for prosecution that would dismantle the entire operation. Sarah's unique capabilities had proven instrumental in exposing corruption that conventional investigation methods might have missed entirely. In the aftermath, as dawn broke over Precision Point shooting range, Sarah found herself facing a completely transformed future. The federal investigation had revealed the full scope of Donovan's criminal enterprise, involving not just illegal weapons trafficking, but also money laundering for organized crime groups and corruption of local political figures. Her evidence had provided the foundation for prosecutions that would continue for months, if not years. Elena Rodriguez, shaken but unharmed, expressed amazement at Sarah's capabilities during the night's events. "I knew you were an exceptional instructor," she said, "but what I witnessed tonight was something else entirely. How do you see so clearly in complete darkness?" Sarah's explanation of her genetic condition led to a broader understanding of why her teaching methods had been so effective for low-light training scenarios. Dr. Martinez arrived at the scene as part of the federal response team, confirming that Sarah's participation in the surveillance operation had been voluntary and legally authorized. The research into enhanced night vision capabilities had indeed attracted interest from law enforcement agencies, and Sarah's successful application of these abilities in a real-world criminal investigation would likely lead to additional opportunities in federal security positions. Marcus Donovan, facing federal charges that would likely result in decades of imprisonment, maintained his arrogance even in defeat. "You think you've won something?" he snarled at Sarah as federal agents placed him in custody. "There are dozens of operations like this one. You've barely scratched the surface." His threats were empty, but they revealed the scope of corruption that Sarah's investigation had begun to uncover. Brett Sullivan, whose background investigation revealed connections to several criminal organizations, provided additional evidence in exchange for reduced charges. His testimony exposed the systematic infiltration of legitimate shooting ranges and training facilities by criminal enterprises seeking to legitimize their weapons trafficking operations. Sarah's documentation had provided the breakthrough that made Sullivan's cooperation possible. 6 months later, Sarah stood before a congressional subcommittee investigating the use of recreational shooting facilities for criminal activities. Her testimony, carefully crafted to protect classified aspects of her visual capabilities while explaining the general principles of enhanced surveillance, contributed to legislation requiring improved oversight of commercial shooting ranges and stricter licensing requirements for firearms instructors. The Precision Point shooting range had been purchased by a consortium of former customers, including Elena Rodriguez and several other law enforcement professionals who were committed to maintaining the facility's legitimate training mission, Sarah was offered the position of head instructor and facility manager, with full authority to establish training protocols and hiring standards that would prevent future infiltration by criminal organizations. Her specialized teaching methods, no longer constrained by Donovan's commercial priorities, flourished in the new environment. Students traveled from across the state to participate in her low-light training programs, which had gained recognition among law enforcement agencies as the most effective civilian instruction available for tactical shooting scenarios. Sarah's ability to help students maximize their natural night vision capabilities had become legendary. Though she continued to keep the full extent of her own abilities private, Elena Rodriguez, whose career had been enhanced by her involvement in exposing the criminal operation, became Sarah's assistant instructor and closest collaborator in developing new training techniques. Their partnership demonstrated the power of combining conventional police training with Sarah's innovative approaches to low-light marksmanship and tactical awareness. Dr. Martinez's research into genetic variations in human vision had been expanded based on Sarah's successful application of enhanced night vision capabilities in law enforcement situations. Several universities were now studying the potential for identifying and training individuals with similar genetic advantages. Though Sarah remained the most documented case of practical application in criminal investigation and tactical operations, the impact of Sarah's investigation extended far beyond the immediate criminal prosecutions. Federal agencies had identified patterns of criminal infiltration in recreational shooting facilities across multiple states, leading to a comprehensive review of licensing and oversight procedures for the entire industry. Sarah's unique capabilities had provided the initial breakthrough that made this broader investigation possible. As she reflected on the extraordinary journey from demoted employee to federal investigator, Sarah realized that her most significant achievement wasn't the criminal convictions or the legislative changes, but the demonstration that exceptional capabilities, combined with moral courage, could overcome institutional corruption and professional discrimination. Her story had become an inspiration for others facing similar challenges in male-dominated professions, where competence was often overshadowed by politics and prejudice. The shooting range that had once been a symbol of exclusion and criminal corruption had been transformed into a model of professional instruction and community service. Sarah's leadership had created an environment where students of all backgrounds could develop their skills without intimidation or discrimination, while maintaining the highest standards of safety and tactical effectiveness. Her extraordinary night vision, once seen as merely an interesting genetic anomaly, had proven to be a powerful tool for justice and social change. The case had demonstrated that individual talents, when properly applied and ethically directed, could expose corruption and create positive change in ways that conventional approaches might miss entirely. Elena Rodriguez often reflected on the night when she had witnessed Sarah's remarkable abilities firsthand. "I came to learn better shooting techniques," she would tell other students, "but I learned something much more important about courage, integrity, and the power of using your gifts to protect others." It was a lesson that resonated throughout the law enforcement community and beyond. The legacy of the Precision Point investigation continued to unfold as other individuals with enhanced visual capabilities were identified and trained for specialized law enforcement applications. Sarah's success had opened new possibilities for utilizing genetic variations in human abilities for security and investigation purposes, always with careful attention to ethical considerations and individual choice. Dr. Martinez published research based on Sarah's case that revolutionized understanding of how enhanced sensory capabilities could be applied in law enforcement and security contexts. The work emphasized the importance of voluntary participation and ethical application of such abilities, using Sarah's story as a model for responsible development of human potential in service of justice and community protection. Today, Precision Point Shooting Range stands as a testament to the power of individual courage and exceptional ability to overcome corruption and create positive change. Sarah Chen's journey from demoted employee to respected federal investigator demonstrates that true strength comes not from intimidation or political connections, but from competence, integrity, and the willingness to use one's unique gifts in service of justice. Her story continues to inspire others who face discrimination or corruption, proving that sometimes the most unlikely heroes can achieve the most extraordinary victories. As Sarah's reputation grew within federal law enforcement circles, she found herself facing an unexpected challenge that would test her abilities in ways she had never anticipated. 3 years after the Precision Point investigation, Dr. Martinez contacted her with urgent news about a development that threatened to compromise everything they had built together. "Sarah, we have a problem," Dr. Martinez said during their secure video call. "The research data from your case has been compromised. Someone with significant resources and technical capabilities has accessed our classified files, including detailed information about your enhanced night vision abilities." The implications were immediately clear to Sarah. If criminal organizations learned about her unique capabilities, they could develop countermeasures or, worse, target her directly. The breach had occurred at the National Institute of Health's secure research facility, suggesting involvement by either foreign intelligence services or domestic criminal organizations with sophisticated cyber warfare capabilities. Dr. Martinez explained that the stolen information included not just Sarah's case files, but research data on 12 other individuals with similar genetic variations who had been identified through the expanded screening program. "We believe the breach is connected to Marcus Donovan," Dr. Martinez continued. "Even from federal prison, he's maintained connections to criminal organizations that have significant financial motivation to neutralize the investigative techniques you pioneered. Intelligence reports suggest they're planning to use the stolen information to identify and eliminate individuals with enhanced capabilities before they can be recruited by law enforcement agencies." This revelation transformed Sarah's situation from that of a successful federal contractor to a potential target requiring protection. However, rather than accepting passive security measures, Sarah proposed an alternative approach that would use the criminals' knowledge against them. If they knew about her capabilities, she could use that knowledge to anticipate their actions and turn their attempted countermeasures into investigative opportunities. Elena Rodriguez, now a detective with specialized training in organized crime investigation, became Sarah's primary law enforcement liaison for addressing this new threat. Their partnership had evolved from instructor-student to equals collaborating on complex federal cases, with Elena's police training complementing Sarah's unique observational abilities and tactical expertise. The good news is that they've made a mistake, Elena explained during their strategy session at a secure federal facility. By stealing the research data, they've revealed their awareness of enhanced capability programs. This gives us leverage to identify their network and operational methods. She displayed a map showing locations where individuals with enhanced night vision had been identified, noting patterns that suggested systematic surveillance of the research program. Sarah studied the intelligence reports with growing concern. The criminal organizations weren't just targeting individuals with enhanced capabilities. They were specifically seeking to recruit or eliminate people who could threaten their low-light operations. Drug trafficking, weapons smuggling, and human trafficking all relied heavily on activities conducted under cover of darkness, making enhanced night vision a significant tactical advantage for law enforcement. Dr. Martinez had been working with federal security agencies to relocate and protect the other individuals identified in the research program, but Sarah's high profile made concealment impossible. Instead, they developed a strategy that would use her visibility to draw out the criminal network while gathering intelligence about their operations and capabilities. The plan required Sarah to maintain her normal activities at Precision Point while federal agents monitored for surveillance attempts and potential threats. Her enhanced night vision made her uniquely qualified to detect hostile observation that conventional security measures might miss, effectively turning her into both bait and primary sensor for the operation. Within weeks of implementing this strategy, Sarah began noticing surveillance activities that confirmed the seriousness of the threat. Using her enhanced night vision during evening hours at the range, she identified individuals conducting observation from positions that would be invisible to normal eyesight. Their sophisticated equipment and coordinated movements suggested professional training and significant financial backing. The first direct confrontation occurred during what should have been a routine evening training session. Sarah was working with a group of law enforcement officers on advanced low-light techniques when her enhanced vision detected multiple individuals positioning themselves around the facility's perimeter. Their movements and equipment suggested an imminent assault rather than passive surveillance. Elena, participating in the training session as part of her continuing education, immediately recognized the tactical significance when Sarah quietly alerted her to the presence of hostile observers. Using predetermined signals, they coordinated an evacuation of the other students while maintaining the appearance of normal training activities to avoid triggering a premature attack. The assault, when it came, demonstrated the criminal organization's sophisticated understanding of Sarah's capabilities and their determination to eliminate the threat she represented. Using flashbang grenades designed to overwhelm enhanced night vision, multiple attackers attempted to storm the facility simultaneously from different entry points. However, Sarah's experience with federal tactical training had prepared her for exactly this type of coordinated assault. Working with Elena and responding federal agents, Sarah was able to use her enhanced night vision to coordinate defensive positions and identify attacker locations even after the flashbang detonations had temporarily compromised normal visibility. Her ability to adapt to rapidly changing light conditions proved crucial in maintaining tactical awareness. During the chaotic engagement, the battle that followed showcased the evolution of Sarah's capabilities, from simple marksmanship instruction to sophisticated tactical operations, moving through the darkened facility with precision that amazed even experienced federal agents. She was able to outmaneuver attackers who had planned their assault based on incomplete understanding of her actual abilities. During the engagement, Sarah demonstrated techniques that had never been documented in any research study. Her enhanced night vision allowed her to identify safe movement routes through the facility while coordinating with Elena and federal agents to systematically neutralize the attacking force. The criminals found themselves completely outmatched by capabilities they had underestimated despite their stolen intelligence. The aftermath of the assault provided federal investigators with unprecedented intelligence about the criminal organization's structure and capabilities. Captured attackers revealed connections to international trafficking networks that had been using enhanced surveillance capabilities to avoid law enforcement detection. Sarah's case had inadvertently exposed vulnerabilities in these operations that criminal organizations were desperate to eliminate. Marcus Donovan's involvement in orchestrating the attack was confirmed through communications, intercepts, and financial records linking him to the criminal network. Despite his federal imprisonment, he had maintained influence through corrupt contacts and hidden assets that enabled him to coordinate sophisticated operations against perceived threats to his organization's interests. The investigation revealed that Donovan's original operation at Precision Point had been part of a much larger network of criminal enterprises operating throughout the region. Shooting ranges, gun shows, and firearms training facilities had been systematically infiltrated to provide cover for weapons trafficking, money laundering, and communication networks supporting various criminal activities. Sarah's success in exposing and disrupting these operations had made her a priority target for elimination. but it had also demonstrated the potential for individuals with enhanced capabilities to serve as force multipliers in law enforcement operations. Federal agencies began developing specialized programs to identify, train, and deploy individuals with similar genetic advantages in strategic investigative roles. Elena Rodriguez found herself at the center of these developments as federal agencies sought to replicate the successful partnership she had developed with Sarah. Her police training, combined with her understanding of enhanced capability operations, made her invaluable for training other law enforcement officers to work effectively with individuals possessing unusual sensory advantages. Dr. Martinez's research program experienced explosive growth as federal funding increased to support identification and training of individuals with enhanced capabilities. However, the security breach had demonstrated the need for much more sophisticated protection protocols to prevent criminal organizations from obtaining information about program participants. The expanded program identified individuals with enhanced hearing, smell, spatial awareness, and other sensory capabilities that could provide tactical advantages in specific law enforcement applications. Sarah's case had proven that such genetic variations, when properly trained and ethically applied, could revolutionize investigative techniques and operational effectiveness. Working with federal training academies, Sarah developed comprehensive curricula for law enforcement officers who would be working with enhanced capability teams. Her instruction emphasized the importance of understanding both the advantages and limitations of unusual sensory abilities, while maintaining ethical standards and constitutional protections in their application. The success of these programs attracted international attention, with allied intelligence services seeking to develop similar capabilities for their own operations. Sarah found herself consulting on cases involving international terrorism, organized crime, and sophisticated trafficking networks that had previously been difficult to penetrate using conventional investigative methods. However, the growing prominence of enhanced capability programs also attracted opposition from civil liberties organizations concerned about potential abuses of surveillance powers. Sarah worked closely with legal experts and ethics committees to develop guidelines, ensuring that enhanced capabilities would be used only with appropriate oversight and constitutional protections. Elena Rodriguez was promoted to lead a new federal task force, specializing in cases requiring enhanced capability support. Her experience working with Sarah provided the foundation for developing operational protocols that maximize the effectiveness of unusual sensory abilities, while maintaining legal and ethical standards that would withstand judicial scrutiny. The task force's first major case involved a human trafficking network that had been evading law enforcement detection through sophisticated use of low-light operations and rural locations. Sarah's enhanced night vision capabilities, combined with Elena's investigative expertise and tactical coordination, enabled them to gather evidence and coordinate rescues that would have been impossible using conventional methods. The success of this operation led to similar task forces being established in multiple federal districts, each incorporating individuals with enhanced capabilities matched to specific regional threats and operational requirements. Sarah's pioneering work had created a new paradigm for law enforcement operations that was spreading throughout the federal system. As the enhanced capability program matured, Sarah found herself transitioning from active field operations to strategic planning and program development roles. Her experience provided the foundation for training protocols, operational guidelines, and ethical frameworks that would govern the use of enhanced capabilities in law enforcement for decades to come. Precision Point Shooting Range had evolved into a national training center for enhanced capability operations, attracting law enforcement officers from across the country, seeking instruction in advanced techniques for low-light operations and tactical applications of unusual sensory abilities. Sarah's teaching methods had been refined through years of field experience and research collaboration. The facility hosted annual conferences, bringing together researchers, law enforcement professionals, and individuals with enhanced capabilities to share developments in training techniques, operational applications, and ethical considerations. These gatherings had become essential forums for advancing the responsible development of human potential in service of justice and security. Dr. Martinez published a comprehensive study documenting the evolution of enhanced capability programs from Sarah's initial case through the establishment of federal task forces and international collaboration agreements. The research emphasized the critical importance of voluntary participation, ethical oversight, and constitutional protections in preventing abuse of enhanced surveillance capabilities. Elena Rodriguez often reflected on the journey from that first low-light training session to leading a federal task force that had revolutionized law enforcement operations. Sarah didn't just teach me better shooting techniques. She would tell new recruits. She showed me that extraordinary capabilities, when combined with ethical commitment and professional excellence, can transform entire systems and create justice where none existed before. The criminal organizations that had initially targeted Sarah found themselves facing systematic dismantlement as enhanced capability task forces identified and disrupted their operations with unprecedented effectiveness. The advantage that darkness and concealment had provided to criminal enterprises was being neutralized by individuals who could operate in conditions that would blind conventional law enforcement. Marcus Donovan, facing additional federal charges related to the assault on Precision Point and his coordination of criminal network activities, finally began cooperating with investigators in exchange for consideration in his sentencing. His testimony provided crucial intelligence about international connections and operational methods that enabled further expansion of enhanced capability operations. The success of these programs attracted attention from private security firms and corporate entities seeking to develop similar capabilities for protecting their operations and assets. Sarah worked with federal agencies to establish licensing and oversight requirements, ensuring that enhanced capabilities would be used responsibly in private sector applications. Years after her initial demotion at a corrupt shooting range, Sarah had become a recognized expert in tactical applications of enhanced human capabilities, with her methods being studied and implemented by law enforcement agencies worldwide. Her story demonstrated that individual excellence, when supported by ethical commitment and institutional integrity, could create transformative change that extended far beyond any single case or investigation. The legacy of her work continued to evolve as new individuals with enhanced capabilities were identified and trained for specialized roles in law enforcement, intelligence operations, and security applications. Each success built upon the foundation that Sarah had established through her courage, competence, and unwavering commitment to using her unique gifts in service of justice and protection of others. Today, the Enhanced Capability Program that began with Sarah's case operates in dozens of countries, has prevented countless crimes, and has demonstrated that human genetic diversity, when properly understood and ethically applied, represents an invaluable resource for creating safer communities and more effective justice systems. Her transformation from dismissed employee to pioneering federal contractor proves that true capability transcends conventional expectations, and that justice often emerges from the most unlikely sources.